Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing live. It's Monday, October the 24th, isn't it, gentlemen? And, sorry, 23rd, is it? Was it
No,
24th?
it's 24th. 23rd was yesterday, Tony. My birthday, remember?
So I've just been all of a spin since Saturday, but we'll get to that, won't we? And we all know why. I'm wearing my black jersey there in homage to the men in black, as you can see. Indeed, we'll get to them in a second. But first things first, we'll have to say, guys, it's your last chance. You know what I'm going to put up here. It's your last chance. You've got to subscribe to win this wonderful prize. It's an all expenses paid trip for two to Madrid to watch Celtic play in the Bernabeu. As you know, Celtic travel to the Santiago Bernabeu to play Real Madrid in their final Champions League Group F match on November the 2nd. And you and a friend can be there, courtesy of the Celtic Way and Travel Bank Holidays. As you can see on the screen, we're running our best subscription offer ever. It's the best. It's not only just 2 tickets to the match, it's the whole trip. 2 match tickets, 2 seats in a direct return flight to Madrid from Glasgow, 4-star accommodation, and a wee bit of spending money thrown in for good measure. Now, what do you need to do to enter this? You have to subscribe. And if you're already a subscriber, you'll have gotten an email in your inbox. Fill in the forum. You've subscribed. Sean's put the link to it on the website as well, in the comments section there. And if you're not a subscriber, subscribe. It costs £6 for 6 months. All you need to do is hit that button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. You'll get the forum, fill in the forum, and then you're automatically entered. But you have until midnight tonight. That's midnight tonight to subscribe to the Celtic Way. Hit the button, guys. Could be going to Madrid, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's the good news. That's a fabulous prize, isn't it, guys?
Certainly is, Tony, aye. Certainly is.
Well, say good news. We'll get to the baddish news or whatever you want to call it. There was a game of association football in Edinburgh on Saturday, Sean. Quite an entertaining game it was as well. 7-goal thriller, et al. But we've seen the appearance of something in the humdinger, or as I called VAR, the humdinger. VAR was introduced to Scottish football on Saturday, and there was a few contentious issues with it. You can call it teething problems. I'm not having that, but that's neither here nor there. Sean, Celtic won 4-3. Classic match. It will be remembered for all the wrong reasons, will it not?
It'll be remembered for the VAR, but it should be remembered for the fact that Celtic didn't let it get the better of them and came out 4-3 winners, which is what I'll primarily remember from it. But I suppose if we're going to go with the VAR first, which Raymond's here just saying doesn't take long for VAR to be the top topic, oh dearie me, which reflects your own comments there, Tony. Kaiser coming in, the Three Musketeers reunited to tackle VAR with both feet. And Brian Roberts, Sean, welcome back. That's an East Kilbride tan you've got. Is that such a thing, Tony?
I don't think so. Looking at me, I wouldn't have thought so. By the way, as I forgot to say, I'm Tony Haggerty, Haggerty, and I'm joined by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW and Aidan Macdonald at Aidan C Macdonald. Excuse my manners, boys. I'm just all of a spin, as I said, but there you go. Anyway, Sean, what was your thoughts? You did a wonderful first impressions piece on VAR, which you loaded up to the website on Saturday. And it was critical, wasn't it? Let's put it that way.
I liberty, I suppose, and just done an instant reaction from my own thoughts on it. Basically, just I think it was 11 instances that it could have been used. So all the goals and different other things and stuff. If I put a link in the comments if you want to read it, it's not scientific or anything. It's just my own opinion and maybe backed up now and again by a couple of wee IFAB rules. You know I like them. But I mean, the first one, obviously, it's meant to be looked for every goal. First one, James Forrest opener, nothing really to bother reviewing. But it wasn't long after that, the Anthony Ralston disallowed goal, which I suppose you can't really call it a disallowed goal because it blew too quickly for the goal to actually have been disallowed, if you know what I mean. But I think that was the wrong call from the referee rather than from VAR. VAR was rendered inconsequential almost by the fact that the referee blew his whistle while the ball was still in mid-flight, which meant the act of scoring wasn't relevant at that point. But I don't think there was even a foul, personally. I've seen it back a few times now. I still don't think there's a foul. Maida slightly in an offside position, but not in the goalkeeper's line of sight or interfering with play. So the report was, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, that it was a Giakoumakis foul.
I believe so, yeah. Well, I was
I
there.
still don't think there was one.
I was there, Sean, as you know, and I heard the whistle. So even like seconds before Ralston put the ball in the net, I knew that it wasn't going to count anyway, because we could all hear the whistle. Aidan, it went very early, but it went very early for something which you see in a penalty area when the ball's coming in, 10 a penny, players jostling, guys grabbing, hold a shirt, whatever you want to call it. It was fairly innocuous, wasn't it? And to the point where it was almost invisible. I didn't see much wrong with it, and I thought, as you said, Sean, VAR was meant to allow the play to go on. And then
that's the referee that allows the play to go on. Yeah. It's not VAR, it's VAR only comes in after that.
The referee, obviously, he'd already blown for an infringement, Aidan, so I think that would have been wiped out anyway, regardless. And Tony Ralston said after he never heard the whistle, he just concentrated on putting the ball in the net.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a strange one in terms of that Ralston example, Tony. And if that goal is going to be ruled out for a foul on Giakoumakis, then there's going to be a lot of goals ruled out this season across the Scottish game, because it's, you see that happen all the time, players jostling, and the fact that that's what it was for is a bit crazy, to be honest, but that's what it is.
Now, again though, that I wouldn't put that down to a VAR thing. That's the thing, because it was a referee blowing too quickly, and then VAR never even get involved because he'd already stopped the play. There was no goal to check, if you want to put it that way. But whether I think it was a foul or no, I don't. I think he should have let it play out, and we'll come back to that part later on about letting things play out. He should have let it play out and then checked it, and I think if he'd have checked it, he probably would have realised it wasn't a foul. But nonetheless, that was the second incident. I'm counting all the goals as incidents because they've got to be reviewed, that kind of thing. As I say, the James Forrest goal, there's nothing really to look at. The next one was a Hearts first penalty.
Yep.
Notice I say first penalty, first of three technically. In my kind of instant reaction, VAR was correct to flag that. Penalty award was correct, although it took ages, which is the only thing I would say. It took absolutely ages to actually get to that decision and for the referee to actually go and check it.
But I also think the penalty was analysed from every conceivable angle possible, wasn't it?
But it was a penalty.
Yeah, I know, and I'm not disputing the decision. It was a clear-cut penalty, yeah. But I can't understand why it took so long to arrive at the decision.
Aye, it took ages for him to go and check it. That's the thing. So, I thought it would have been said, right, just go and do it.
Yeah, but my father could tell me he was watching it on TV, and he said that it was analysed from every angle, Aidan. So there was no disputing and no dubiety about it. It was a penalty. He fouled him. Fine. I've no qualms about
that. The one after that, Aidan, Celtic penalty claim. This is the one. This is the one. That was even later in the first half.
This is the airplane moment, isn't it? When everybody runs about like mad.
James Forrest goes to flick the ball into the box. Michael Smith handles the ball. My personal opinion, I don't know if any of you disagree, my personal opinion was that I was baffled that it wasn't checked, or it wasn't asked to go and check it, which I'm presuming, given the kind of rundown you get from it, VAR didn't think it was a clear and obvious error. I would argue a penalty call is a clear and obvious error, especially in the circumstances. I've put up the IFAB rules onto that article, and it's like deliberately touching the ball with their arm, whether you think it was deliberately moving it towards it or not. He still touched it in a position where his body was made unnaturally bigger. I think there was no dubiety about it. I think it was a penalty, should have been checked, wasn't checked, and wasn't given.
It's a clear-cut penalty all day long. It's a clear-cut penalty for every Scottish Premiership team every day of the week. And also, that wasn't analysed from any angles at all. The decision was so quick.
To be fair, you don't know that, Tony, because you don't see it on the screen because it never went to a check. They checked it, obviously, but it didn't go to the ref's check, so you don't see any of that.
And the thing about that is, I would add the caveat that, see if that's not a penalty, and VAR tells you that it's not a penalty, then there has to be an explanation for that. There has to be.
I would agree with that. That's a different thing.
They have to be mic'd up and tell you why, because I want to know why, and I think every Scottish football fan wants to know why that wasn't a penalty on Saturday. It's as clear a handball as you're ever going to see. Only two people can tell you why it wasn't a penalty, Nick Walsh and Stephen McLean. I want an explanation. from it. I don't so much want one, I demand one, because then my understanding of the rules is wrong, or my football intelligence is being insulted, I think, a wee bit. 2 guys can clear this up. 2 guys have to speak. We saw the furore that was caused by Kyogo's offside goal, alleged offside goal against Hearts last week. Crawford Allen and those 2 men have to go onto social media platforms or a media platform and explain why they made that decision.
I don't think it needs to be social media, Tony. It can just be. It can literally be releasing a statement after it saying this.
And this
is a different. That's also a different argument, if you want to put it that way.
But also as part of
that, it's not in place before it. It's not going to happen now. But I do agree with you. It would be good if there was some sort of mechanism where a decision's fully explained.
That just fuels conspiracy theories, Sean. That's the problem here, and everybody having some wild accusations and wild takes about various things, and you know what I'm alluding to here. But I think they could help themselves if, after a decision like that VAR says no penalty, but here's why. Because I think they do it in rugby, don't they? Where the referee explains why. So
they do it in a lot of sports, Tony. They do it. They have the referees mic'd up in a lot.
For all the time that it's going to take to add that caveat on, I think fans would understand that a bit more.
Down in England, I know this is probably irrelevant up here just now, but down in England, they obviously have the officials mic'd up with each other. But I only learned not long ago that the Sky commentators, the BT commentators and stuff, they can hear what's been said by the officials. That's why sometimes it seems as if they know what the decision is going to be before it's because they hear them saying that's what the decision is, that kind of thing. So it's not like it's a hard technology to embrace. But anyway,
Aidan,
I think we're all agreeing, Aidan, then that was a penalty and that it was an incorrect call by the official, and then also by VAR for not flagging it as clear and obvious.
I thought it was a pretty obvious penalty even the first time I seen it through the additional replays on Sky. I also couldn't really understand why it wasn't checked by VAR, as it's a clear and obvious opportunity, like you mentioned, Sean. And that whole thing was just a bit of a disaster, to be honest. Obviously, it didn't matter in terms of the final result, but that isn't really relevant because the technology's there to check something like that. And in my opinion, the referee should have just been spotting it straight away. But anyway, the technology's there to make up for a mistake like that if he doesn't spot it. And then, it still just didn't play out that well. So hopefully that's a teething problem, and going forward, that won't be something we see again.
No having teething problems, Aidan, kicking that out into touch. He should have spotted it right away. I mean, Michael Smith's body language told him as well. He moved the ball towards, and then he did what you do as a kid, and you go, oh, sugar, and then tried to hide his arm behind his back. I mean, if that doesn't tell you that's the actions of a guilty man, then what are you seeing, or what are you not seeing? What are you choosing to see? What are you choosing not to see? All that kind of thing. So
beyond
the easiest decision of them all.
Beyond body language, simply just the IFAB rules, to me, I do think the outcome being a penalty makes it clear and obvious to me anyway, right? But even if he was going to argue, the referee or the VAR was going to argue, the ref's seen it and decided he was in a natural position. I still don't think it was. I think it's made his body unnaturally bigger. As you say, Tony, the body language, he himself probably knew that's what happened. But I mean, there's no dissent within the comments here. Everybody thinks it was a penalty.
Also, as well, have you ever seen the Celtic manager react to a decision the way he did to that VAR decision on Saturday? Aidan had his head in his hands and he laughed incredulously, and then came in at the end and said, I thought that was a penalty. It's a clear-cut penalty, but what do I know? The only penalties we've been given, the only penalties we've taken all season is in training. Now, he didn't mention it to them. I said it in the piece that I wrote, but he gave them a kind of bulletin without actually mentioning them, saying, look, we're watching this. We can see what you can see. How can you not arrive at that decision? But that, I asked him about his reaction, and he said, look, he said, I can't, he couldn't quite fathom it. He was kind of bemused by it all. And you saw those pictures of him, head in the hands and kind of laughing ironically, Aidan. I mean, I've never seen that. And as he said in his Friday press conference before the game, he's been here 16 months and he's never once called a referee out. He's never named and shamed any of them, and he will not do so. because it's not his stick. But on Saturday, it was just like, well, I mean, come on. And kind of asked what Celtic had to do to get a penalty, because they're the top scorers in the country and a side that attacks a lot. Did just what you want from that, Aidan?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Andrew's comments and his reaction, given how baffling the decision was, I can completely understand that. I reckon everybody watching, or the majority of people watching, the majority of people in the stadium could see first time that was a penalty. Even if VAR wasn't a thing, that would still kind of be viewed as a pretty poor decision. So yeah, Andrew's reaction I think was completely justified, and that has been the first time that he's kind of shown us that much emotion related to a decision, and that probably shows you how poor the decision was. But in any way, people may say, "Oh, it didn't impact the final result of the game," but once again, that's not really relevant, because if that's going to be a regular thing in terms of how situations like that are handled, the clear and obvious moments not going to VAR when that's what VAR's there for, and it's just going to cause disruption across the league for all teams, to be honest.
I think that's a good point, Aidan, because if anything, I would say it strengthens your case if you complain after a win, because it's not sore losers, sour grapes, anything like that. It's simply that was a wrong decision, that kind of thing. So I think it strengthens your argument if you do it after a win, rather than after you've dropped points or something. But Tory, there's other ones, obviously. As I say, Hart's second goal get reviewed by VAR. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because it was correct, but there was nice wee lines on the screen for that one, Tony.
Yeah.
Not to skip too far forward, but I'm still not sure if Liel Abada was offside near
the end. No, because there was no lines on the screen for that.
And I'm just not sure what happened there, because I was expecting
another
check with lines, so I don't know.
So why not? VAR can't be selective, and you can't be selective in what decisions you want to highlight.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The way that the Abada thing played out was correct. They let play go on. They let the play get to the end of the
and then flagged when he scored,
and then they flagged after it, because that is what they should do, because they should let it happen.
Not be checked, and the lines
it was checked, but it just wasn't put up on the screen. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand why the lines weren't put on the screen when it was for the Hearts goal.
I've seen various social media.
Sure if it was offside or not.
But I've seen various social media stills, and I don't know. Like you say, show them on side, inches on, inches off, or whatever. But so there's dubiety there, Sean. So it should be dissected to the nth degree, and so that they come up with the right answer. But as you say, that was too. I mean, and Shankland's was fine because they showed you it was fine.
Yeah,
we're still talking about Abada's on Saturday, which would have been a match clinching. Well, they won anyway, then as you say, but.
But as Aidan says, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter, exactly.
If it's
that would have been 5-3 and comfortable. And then there was another weird offside given at the death, wasn't there?
It's an odd one, that one, aye.
When Joe Hart launches the ball forward, and for the life of me,
the thing is with that one, right? Because of the angle of the TV, I wasn't there. I don't know if you get a different view of it when you were there, but the TV camera doesn't pan round until the ball's already been struck, so I don't know where he was before it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look as if it was offside, but I hands up, I cannot comment on it, because it just the TV camera doesn't give you the angle. So it looked as if it was miles back, but I don't know where it was when it was struck, so I don't know.
Aidan, also something that the manager said on Saturday struck me, that he said that Celtic players could have been fueled by a sense of injustice and decided that it wasn't their day, but they didn't. And as they've shown many times last season, they just refused to give up on the win. And I think that's exactly what happened on Saturday, despite the adversity of VAR and maybe how they felt. They just thought the most important thing was winning the game. And I'll throw this to you, because I didn't want Sean to go off his nut, but the winning goal-scoring hero was Sean's favourite player, the Greg Taylor fan club himself. And ironically, that came 2 days or 3 days after Greg Taylor says, I don't shoot enough, even when I get into the positions. But he didn't miss on Saturday. And funnily enough, when we asked him, I asked him about shooting enough, and he said, it's funny because if the cutback had been on, I'd probably have cut it back. He says, it was like, it was about 3 or 4 yards for goal, and I thought
What did I say before I knocked off, Tony? Pass first player. He's a pass first player.
Yeah.
I was thinking on you the other night with the Motherwell game, by the way, when he cut it back.
Yeah, so Aidan, I think Celtic did react well to adversity and showed that there's a real camaraderie and a spirit there. And Ralston also said after, we're just going to have to get on with it. But again, that's not the point. The point is that they won in spite of that, not because of it,
I think it is really important if you're going to try and win the league, as we've seen last season, that you have that bounce back ability when a team's equalising against you 1 or 2 times, when a team's taking the lead, knowing that you're not going to be sort of downplayed by the fact that you have to actually get back into games. It's not going to be the case of every single match you're going to turn up and win 3-4-5-0. That's a really important trait to have. And as you were talking about Greg Taylor, I did think of that as well, Tony, and Sean, when you were talking about the whole cutting it back across thing. He was in the right position at the right time, and it was a really, really important goal. You've seen how much it meant to him. His celebration maybe leaves a little bit to be desired, but
I thought it was a tagger.
He just lost it, didn't he? But that's brilliant.
It's probably not really used to
Marco Tardelli about it, Tony.
Yeah. A touch of the Aidan, he didn't know what to do really, because he doesn't score that often. Because I believe that was his first league goal for Celtic.
First league goal,
on Saturday. So, but
and of course, I'll be taking full credit for that, Tony, given it was my birthday weekend.
You're claiming an assist, Sean. You know what I mean? That's in the grand scheme of things, it could turn out to be a Ralston-esque goal.
I think you've got a point.
Yep. So and when the big picture is played out at the end, because that's a huge win for Celtic on Saturday, huge, and also with what happened at Ibrox later on, going for a wee bit of breathing space again. So it was important that happened too. So I think that could be a pivotal point in the season, and everybody will remember it because it was the first day that VAR was introduced and we've had the problems. But as you said as well, Sean, there were other decisions too, wasn't there?
I'm just going to flag up this one from Mark. From what I'm reading, you can't be offside from a goal kick. It wasn't a goal kick though, if I'm right. Remember it right? It was just played back to Hart and then he launched it. So it wasn't a goal kick anyway. As I say, with that one, I wouldn't feel right going too far into it because the TV camera is just it's not the right angle to see it. It doesn't pan around until it's already in the air. So, other decisions, Tony. Hart's second penalty, Manchester reaction thing. I said referee called correct, VAR check was correct. It was a penalty. But the retake incident, that's where I was diving into the IFAB rules again for encroachment, because initially I thought it was going to be he was offside when he put it in because the ball was played forward. But it wasn't. It wasn't actually moved before from behind a player, but it was the encroachment rules.
Yeah, encroachment.
Which actually I've not seen much made of this, but it's not necessarily just that Josh Ginnelly was encroaching, but it's the fact the Celtic players were encroaching as well. That's why it was a retake.
Yeah,
because I've got it in front of me. Right, so the outcome of a penalty kick, if it's just encroachment by the attacking player, and the penalty scored, then the penalty gets retaken. But if it's saved or no goal in general, and it's just the attacking player that encroaches, then it's an indirect free kick. But because it was an encroachment by the defending and attacking players, it's a retake.
Yes.
Which I didn't know, I must admit, until I looked.
I found that out. I found that out when we went down the stairs
and
we were watching the replays on the monitors in the press room, and that was explained to me as well, because I knew about the encroachment, the first one about the goal giving and stuff, but then the indirect free kick was news to me as well. So
I just didn't know. I was once
and I think a lot of
people, the IFAB rules saved in my favourites at this point, but
I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have known that either, because there was a bit of to and fro when that was being explained by, I can't remember who was saying it, but I was like, all right, okay. So
apart from that, Greg Taylor goal, no infringements, just sheer joy. And my final thoughts for that, I felt obliged to quote Ange Postecoglou, because he'd obviously been asked about this several times as it got closer and closer and closer. And initially, I started the article by saying a quote from Ange, which was, the one thing he did know was it won't stop complaints about decisions. And this episode in itself is evidence of that, right? But my final thoughts on it also referenced Ange, because in that same interview, he said if a decision goes against us, it goes against us. Our job after that is to get on with it. and that's the biggest compliment I can give them, is that they still triumph 4-3. They still, all right, we'll come on to the performance, which I still think had holes in it, but they still went 4 points clear. They still didn't let the VAR thing rattle them to the extent that the injustice got to them and knocked them off of the game to the extent that they didn't win. They did win. They're 4 points clear, and 10 wins from 11 league games. It's not bad, Tony.
It is indeed. The performance, as you say, had flaws, but they still won the game, Sean.
Yep.
And Aidan, that's the most important statistic. It said Hearts 3, Celtic 4. Whatever happened with VAR, so be it. It didn't affect their ability to win a football match, which is what pleased the manager greatly. And as Sean said, yeah, you can pick holes in various things. I mean, in my player ratings, I wasn't particularly scathing of him either, but I didn't think he particularly did well. But my goodness, he doesn't have like a rebound, doesn't he? He's lightning quick to react to those things. And that's a vital contribution. I turned to the guy who I was sitting beside at the game and I said to him, rather ominously, Giakoumakis hasn't kicked the ball. Yeah, I said, you know what's coming? And he was looking at me thinking, nah, it's not his game today. Bang, 2 each. Big moment, and put in a real shift. So you rely on certain people and you kind of think they'll bail you out a hole at certain times. And Celtic have got that in abundance, that team spirit, that camaraderie, just to never give in and to dig out various moments when they need it. And every player in the team does it, Aidan.
Yeah, exactly. I think having sort of confidence in players like that is another testament to how good Ange Postecoglou's recruitment's been since he joined the club. Like you're saying, players like Giakoumakis on the pitch, even if not been involved, you're still thinking, no, he's going to get at least one chance here. And it's probably going to be in the box and he's probably going to score with one touch. So, yeah, it does show you kind of, even at times we've maybe had discussions, I know Sean likes to mention it about squad depth, but there is a lot of quality in the team and there's plenty of players on the pitch that you think can dig you out a hole and get you back into games, and that's another vital quality if Celtic are going to want to be successful this season in terms of winning trophies. It's going to be a really important factor, and it was I know we've already touched on it, but that could be potentially, without touching fate, that could be a season defining win come the end of the year. The fact that then led to Celtic going 5 points clear, then also Rangers getting the draw, brought it back down to 4. But at one point you were potentially looking, or I was anyway, I'm sure you two probably were, when you were getting beat 2-1 or it was drawn, thinking if Rangers then win later on, they could potentially go ahead or draw level. Obviously, I know we would have had the superior goal difference, but the fact that you actually ended the weekend further ahead was a brilliant bonus, to be honest. So, yeah, no, I was all positive in the end, Tony.
And Sean, you were touching upon the performance there, and and I think some players were even off key. Moy, Attaching, and O'Reilly weren't great, but they still put in a good enough team performance collectively to help win the match. I thought the substitutions had the impact that the manager wanted, and Celtic played more or less the second half after the penalties. In Hearts half, thought Haksabanovic, Taylor and Abada had the effect that you would want, and Celtic were more offensive for longer periods after that. Taylor gets the winner, so it's no surprise a telling contribution. So I was pleased at that those guys came on and changed the game, because they just refused to take the draw or a defeat for that matter. And I thought Ralston was outstanding again. To be honest, he covered a lot of ground yet. Lots of people thought it wasn't maybe one of Ralston's better games, but still thought he was putting the cross for the first goal, and so you had various, there was things happening in fits and starts in terms of the performance and individual players, but it was still enough, Sean.
Yep. I mean, on the performance, I thought in terms of the actual display, I thought first half they found it quite difficult to play through Hearts' attempts to press them. I thought there's a comment here from Andrew Galea, young Cammy Devlin upset the apple cart a bit with his pressing. I'd agree with that. He also won both the penalties from busting into the box and putting the defence under pressure. I think in the absence of McGregor in particular, you kind of see that. I thought it was a bit of an odd decision, really, in a game where I know Hearts weren't playing well getting into it and certainly lost a lot of games getting into it. But to pick the kind of less technical players, if you want to put it that way, at right back and left wing, I thought was maybe a bit of a risk. I thought Ralston played well. I don't think he was brilliant, but I thought he played well. Alexandro Bernabeu out in the left back, I thought struggled.
Struggled big time.
Struggled to hit the heights the last couple of outings anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think he linked up well with Diaz Almeida, who scored a goal, which obviously is good for me, my pre-season prediction. I don't necessarily agree he was as bad as a 5 out of 10, Tony, because he did score a goal and stuff, but I don't think the two of them linked up that well, which I think contributes a lot to that kind of perception of the performance. But Ralston on the right was better in general. I did think just in general, whether out wide or through the middle, they were a wee bit ponderous without McGregor. But nonetheless, it's strange to say that in a game where they scored 4, where they could have had 5 at least. 6 if you want to say they scored the penalty. What I want to draw your attention to, but is domestically, that's 5 games on the spin with no clean sheet, which I don't like. But of course, as I said, they've won 10 out of 11, so only in the St Mirren game does that stat actually matter, because it's the only league game that they've dropped points in, not one. But it's also 1 clean sheet in the last 10 games in all competitions. And I know there's been injuries, and it's been Champions League games against opponents like Real Madrid and stuff. And I don't want to go too far down that road in this episode, but I think it's worth mentioning that they're struggling to keep goals out regardless. Nonetheless, didn't matter, because they scored 4 and Hearts scored 3, so it didn't really matter.
Something that can
for
be
me,
the
overarching takeaway from the weekend, as I've kind of alluded to already, was that Ange Postecoglou quote of not letting it get to them, not letting that VAR controversy get on top of them, because it could have got on top of them, because there was an injustice there. They went in at half time, and then remember they conceded right away at the start of the second half. So those two things happening in quick succession. I know they didn't play brilliantly, but not to let the two of those in quick succession get to them was real credit to them, I would say. And that's the big overarching takeaway that I would take from that game.
He was 500 days in the job on Saturday, Aidan. I happened to mention that. There was probably a lot more theatre than he would wanted, as he said, but it was still a good way to celebrate 500 days in the job, and he agreed. But nice personal milestone for the manager again, eh?
Yeah, and that does show you Ange has been here a wee while now, and that performance at times was a good example of how he's been able to bed in his ideas. We know it wasn't perfect. Obviously, we had concede 3 goals, regardless of whether or not there was dubious nature about any of them. And yeah, it was a good milestone for Ange. It was a really important victory, and hopefully come the end of the season, that is one, like I've already said, that you'll look back on and go, yeah, that was a real season-defining sort of 3 points with Tynecastle.
And it's incredible.
Sorry. You go.
No, you go.
No, I was just going to say, just to further go with the 10 wins in 11 games and make sure I'm coming across positive here after talking about the clean sheets. Despite conceding 3, Celtic are still conceding on average fewer than a goal a game in the league so far in 11 games, and they're scoring 3.5 goals a game. So don't get me wrong, as much as I'm highlighting the clean sheets haven't been coming lately, it's not mattered much when it comes to domestic football.
Well, yes, in terms of domestic football, yes, but it's 14 goals in preparation for Shakhtar, which is tomorrow, and I've got to the 34th minute before I've even mentioned Shakhtar. We'll preview that in full tomorrow, guys. Indeed, we'll do our predicted lineups et al. But yeah, Celtic got a big Champions League game tomorrow, and we've spent the whole time talking about the Hearts aftermath. So that shows you how much that's been dominating the headlines since Saturday. But as I say, we'll be back tomorrow to preview the Shakhtar game in all its splendour and glory. But before we go, guys, have to flag up, last chance, midnight tonight. Got to subscribe to win. Go on, you know what to do. Hit the button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. If you're a subscriber, you'll have had the email in your inbox. Hopefully you've filled that in and you're in the draw. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. Hit the button. Costs £6 for 6 months. Somebody's going to win an all-expenses paid trip for 2 to Madrid to watch Celtic playing the Bernabeu. And if they beat Shakhtar tomorrow night, Europa League football qualification could all hinge and rest on that. Could be still in the balance. What a trip that is. Guys, hit the button. £6 for 6 months of full access for everything we do on the web and the podcast as well. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. all it remains for me to say is, Sean, great to have you back, sir. Hope you enjoyed your holiday. On fine form again today. Aidan, as always, kept it going in Sean's absence. Held the fort, kept the home fires burning. Toffee, easy, getting used to it. Thanks for your contribution today. Guys, thank you for your contributions in the comments as well. Some were a bit studs up. We try to have that kind of balance. But yeah, we know the feeling. Lots of feeling running high about Saturday's performance. We'll see what happens. But hopefully we've managed to negotiate that well today on the Celtic Way Bulletin. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for all your input. Always appreciate it. Take care. Get subscribing. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Hit the button. You could be going to Madrid. And it ends at midnight tonight.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.